I want to begin with the introduction of a very special guest, Dr. Linda Havisham. She's our college provost and senior vice president for academic affairs and student success. I also want to welcome our community guests, the Daughters of the American Revolution. Also special guest, Dr. Sean Madison, our campus president. Dr. Jose Macia, our Dean of Academic Affairs. Dean Janice Stubbs, our student dean. Dr. Al Smith, Dean of Administration. Dr. Sheila Jones, Director of Honors Institute. And all the rest of our special guests, faculty, and students. Thank you. Today we are having our third History Symposium. It's a presentation by Dr. Edward Cornejo's AMH 2010 Honors Class. The goal of education is for a person to foster his or her fullest potential to enhance their quality of life. Therefore, the goal of education should be seen from the learner's perspective rather than the educator's point of view. That is why today we're flipping instruction, where our students are the teachers and we are the learners. We're going to begin with the introduction of our moderator. Her name is Mónica Seguro. She is from Buenos Aires. Her major is International Relations. And outside of school, her work is as a certified massage therapist and a business developer for an alternative medicine research company. She likes to travel, learn foreign languages, paint, and she also dances the Argentine tango. Please welcome her and with a warm applause. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nieves. Good afternoon, Broward College. How is everyone doing? Faculty members, administrative staff, fellow students, honored guests. We're thrilled to count on your presence today. My name is Mónica Segura, and along with my American History Honors class, would like to welcome you to our third Honors History Symposium, Women, Witchcraft, and Worship, 18th Century America and the Enlightened Mind. What are you doing here, ma'am? No. This is a serious symposium at Broward College. What are you doing in my stage?
I thought this was the witch convention over here.
No, please. I invite you to leave the stage.
How dare you speak to me?
Please. Somebody help me here, please. Please.
This is not the last you've heard about me. Focus. Time to focus.
That was so awkward. I apologize about that, ladies and gentlemen. When we're live on stage, situations can go out of our control. Let's try to be serious here. In today's presentations, we would like to analyze American Revolution, not only from an historical perspective, but also through the roles that women and men, religion and superstitions, education and pedagogy played at the time. If we compare American Revolution to other revolutions, we might tend to think that ours wasn't as radical, perhaps because it did not involve the fighting, the bloodshed, the violence that lie behind those other revolutions. For many, American Revolution has no social character. Because class conflict, poverty, and economic deprivation were not present in colonial America. Besides that, if we want to think about revolutionary characters in history, the first names that will come to our minds are maybe Lenin, Mao Zedong, Che Guevara. Rarely do George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, or John Adams. They normally don't fit the typical profile of a revolutionary. They are not as angry, as passionate, as reckless. They are not thirsty for blood for the sake of the cause. However, if we want to compare the American Revolution by the amount of social transformation that it actually brought, the American Revolution was by no means conservative. It is considered essentially an intellectual event, a constitutional defense against British impositions. These facts make it unlike other revolutions, but no less radical and no less social for being different. In his book, The Radicalism of American Revolution, Gordon S. Wood writes, "The revolution did not just eliminate monarchy and create republics, but it actually reformed what Americans meant by public and state power, and brought a new kind of popular politics and democratic office holder. The revolution changed the culture of the Americans, and most importantly, it made the interest and the prosperity of ordinary people, their pursuit of happiness, the goal of society and government. In that sense, the American Revolution is the most radical and far-reaching event in American history." Without further delay, let me introduce you to our first speaker. Her name is Fida Fitian. Fida is on her second year at Broward College. She is majoring in chemistry, and she's aspiring to become a pediatrician. On her time out of school, she works as a teacher at Montessori Academy and as an associate at Carter's to further her love for children. On her free time, she serves at Memorial West Hospital, catering to patients, and at her local mosque, teaching Arabic to children. She loves traveling, running, and spending time with her family. With her speech, Identity and Soul, Decoding the Enlightened Colonial Woman, please welcome Fida.
Patriotism means loyalty, age means wisdom, and being a woman means being submissive. These are preconceptions embedded so deeply in our thinking that we honestly may not know they are there, and have thrived for centuries, generation after generation. Arguably, the most prominent communal battle in history has been the social improvement of a woman. Women within the 18th century lived their lives entirely governed by the will of men, and their patriarchal society dictated everything, from their main responsibilities to how they conducted themselves. They were solely confined within the priorities of maintaining a house, producing children, and being a good wife. The question of women's rights trailed behind an agitation within the 18th century. It wasn't until logical thinkers like Jean-Jacques Rousseau and John Locke introduced philosophical ideas that women began to believe that they had a special opportunity to live the revolution just as vividly, if not more, than a man. It is a primary misconception that men were the main intellectual warriors within the American Revolution. In fact, even I was under this misconception. That is, until I was enlightened by the movements women were able to accomplish within the American Revolution. They were a strong backbone within the domestic realm, And if it wasn't for the emancipation of women, the American Revolution would not have triumphed. Now, initially the question is, how does a woman remove herself from such a restricted environment? How does she begin to promote her public role within the American Revolution without disrupting her family and her reputation? Females were considered innocent and non-threatening. And with all the piling duties on her shoulders, how is she supposed to become one of the most essential and influential figures within the American Revolution? Women use this very reputation as their iron fist. Colonial women had unrestricted access to war sites to help cater to wounded soldiers. Within their visits, they were surrounded by hundreds of army soldiers who disclosed army secrets and army tactics. These male soldiers were not concerned with a woman overhearing what they had to say because, to a man, what's a girl to a war? She's just here to bandage an injury. She has no other role. Aiding their cover was such a prevailing attitude for women, and it was important for them to act in the way they were expected to. They extracted what they heard and repeated all details to their husbands when they went home. They were the main source of spying and helped America gain its independence from Great Britain. They overheard secrets that helped uncover war strategies and fundamentally led to combat advancement. But it didn't stop there. Women had to be innovative. The majority didn't have the luxury of visiting war sites. They decided to initiate boycott movements within the very comfort of their home. Non-consumption became the major weapon in the arsenal of the American resistance movement. They taught themselves how to spin and favored homespun clothing. Women also wove blankets for army soldiers. This sent a strong message of unity against British oppression, especially since fabric exports were such a significant financial source for the British economy. As patriots, women utilized their skills to assist the revolutionary cause. The more they became involved, the more they encouraged to think of stronger patriotic gestures that would embark on America's battle towards independence. As an attempt to encourage women to become more encouraged within the American Revolution, philosophical figures released statements and excerpts that supported the free will of women. Jean-Jacques Rousseau primarily claimed that nature has created woman happy and good, but society depraves her and makes her miserable. John Locke openly honored mothers and wives by distinguishing that women were not connected to property, and helped establish the creation of a woman as her own person within the Commonwealth. These locutions were progressive steps within feminist leanings and inspired many women to morph away from the cocoon of their confinement. A minute man, defined as he, a male member of a well-prepared militia, offering rapid forces that respond to any suspected war threat. Minutemen is considered one of the bolded words within the American Revolution. Yet, let's consider the term Minute Woman. If I were to mention names such as Paul Revere and George Washington, I believe that most, if not everyone here, is familiar with these individuals. But what about Prudence Wright, Betsy Ross, Mercy Otis Warren? Prudence Wright courageously and successfully led the women of her town, Broughton, Massachusetts. She led them to dress with the attire of their husbands and to arm themselves with weaponry, ultimately to achieve the disguise of American male soldiers to defend their families and community. Betsy Ross, adapting what she learned from the homespun movement, sewed the very first flag of the United States of America. This flag, especially at the moment it was sewn, was an emblem that represented the symbolic pride and country's struggle to earn its well-deserved freedom. Mercy Otis Warren, the first individual to document the written history of the American Revolution, used notes from meetings and conversations and war events that became published as the most reliable source of accuracy. Even women living in England took action to help the American cause. When American prisoners were taken to England for safekeeping, a woman by the name Patience Wright helped many of them escape and disclosed English war secrets. Although women were not easily permitted by society to participate so furiously within the revolution, their patriotic passion could not be concealed, and it continues till this day.
caught up on all the housework. All that's left is your room. If you could take care of that, please. I'll just do it later.
Why don't you get some big strong man to save your precious city? Or better yet, why don't you stop making women do your dirty work and do it yourself?
Mom, your choice to go back to blue is so empowering.
But you said going from blue to gray was empowering.
Well, as a feminist, virtually anything a woman does is empowering.
We'll raise our banner across this land, 'cause franchise isn't just the right of a man.
I'm a feminist. I reject wholeheartedly the way we are taught to save women.
A while back, I was on the Ellen show, and Ellen asked me if I would call myself a feminist, and I said I absolutely would. And then recently, I gave this interview with a journalist whose name is Marlo Stern, and he asked me, well, what does that mean to you to be a feminist, or what does feminism mean to you? And I told him that to me, it just means that your gender doesn't have to define who you are, that you can be whatever you want to be, whoever you want to be, regardless of your gender.
And an editorial board with the Reno newspaper.
And this year, I'm happy to say that marriage equality passed in Maine, Maryland, and Washington.
The way you step up your game is not to worry about the other guy in any situation, because you can't control the other guy.
The predominant reaction to the women's movement was ridicule. It took us a long time to be taken seriously enough to be opposed.
Women are steadfast, dependable, and risk their lives in every way imaginable for the sake of the country they live in and their well-being. As I urge to you all, and as Abigail Adams urged to her husband John Adams, I desire you to remember the ladies.
Thank you, Frida. Your message was really powerful and enlightening, relevant even today. As a woman, it made me think about the courage and the strength these ladies had in colonial America. For the first time, I feel grateful for what they did for us. So as women could enjoy the rights and the freedoms that we have in America today. Thank you for that, Frida. Our next presentation will be done by a team of two ladies, Anna Soptishin and Jahan Balishova. Anna, majoring in business administration, foresees her career as a corporate lawyer. She loves ballroom dancing and learning about different languages and cultures. As a matter of fact, she's fluent in English, Spanish, French, and her native Polish. Jahan, originally from Turkmenistan, is on her second year at Broward College. She's a proud member of the Honor Student Committee and of Phi Theta Kappa. She's aspiring to become a pharmacist to fulfill her passion to help people. With their speech, magical power, and scientific revelation, from mysterious witchcraft to enlightenment. Ladies,
good afternoon, Broward College students, faculty, and guests.
Hello everyone. Most of us in Florida speak Spanish. However, today we'll get to learn how to say hello in Polish and in Turkmen.
In Turkmenistan, when we greet people, we say salam. Let's try to repeat it. Salam.
In Polish, we say dzień dobry. Let's try to repeat the first part. Dzień dobry. Good job.
Even though Halloween is over, today we're going to talk about
witches. We're in the middle of our presentation.
You think he's going to talk about me today?
Yeah, but we have to continue our speech. Can you please leave?
It's a serious event.
No.
You ladies are no fun.
Sorry about that.
When it comes to witchcraft, people usually think about something fictional, abstract, and unreal.
However, back in the 17th century, people did truly believe in supernatural powers and consider witchcraft as a product of devil worship.
Today, Anna and I will give you a thorough insight to witchcraft in America.
In particular, we'll focus on Salem witchcraft hysteria that took place in 1692.
First of all, we will give you a brief history of American witch hunt.
Then, we'll concentrate on two different perspectives concerning Salem witchcraft hysteria.
And at the end, we will explain why witch hunt trials started to disappear due to the Enlightenment age.
Witch hunt was not a peculiar aberration that burst out of nowhere, but it was a result of the 17th century problems and attitudes. It existed throughout all the British colonies. However, New England was the place where the accusations occurred on a much greater scale. To really understand what happened in Salem in 1692, it is very important to realize how the world and the interplay of supernatural and natural phenomena were viewed by English colonists and Puritans in particular.
The disproportionate number in New England was due to the religious culture that had a great influence back in 1692. Puritans were highly concerned with the evil forces that would put in danger individual souls and New England as a whole. They rejected the idea of coincidence. Everything that happened was willed by God. Therefore, any extraordinary event that would seem beyond the natural order would be associated with supernatural powers. They strongly believed that magic worked through the intervention of the devil.
On the other hand, colonists viewed the world as an enchanted place where the supernatural powers could bring about changes in the natural world.
God was testing, tempting, punishing, and rewarding each individual.
Fear of witches was embedded within the culture that English migrants brought with them while settling in North America.
It is vital to remember that witch hunt had already existed in Europe. In the 15th century, Inquisition, which was an institution within the Catholic Church, aimed at converting people into Catholicism. For example, Spain and Portugal identified witch hunt with the dangerous heresy. People were unjustly tortured and killed. Thus, it was nothing new and specific to the Americas. However, what makes it different from the previous one that occurred in the colonies is the scale of the witch hunt trials and the intensity of the fears that existed among local people that year.
The panic began in January in 1692, when a few girls, young women, and also men started to have strange fits that horrified their families and neighbors. People were trying to find a cause of that behavior and eventually to put an end to that affliction.
The fact that people didn't know where those strange fits were coming from and how to cure them made people to start blaming others of bewitching them. Accusers insisted that those who experienced fits must have allowed devil to appear in their likeness and must be witches in league with Satan.
Over the next few weeks, accusations proliferated on a scale never seen before. The entire region was gripped by the fear of witch panic. The trials resulted in the executions of around 20 people. Most of them were hanged, some managed to escape from prison, others were granted a reprieve.
As stated by historian Richard Godbeer, the silent hysteria destroyed thousands of lives and families. It left people scared by tragedy and constant recrimination.
Jahan and I, we believe that Salem witchcraft hysteria was actually multi-causal.
There are many different perspectives explaining why hysteria occurred. However, what grabbed our attention were two different perspectives.
The first one is economic and social approach that leads us to some patterns of accusations. According to Richard Godbeer, 76% of the accused were actually female. Roughly half of the men charged with the occult were either closely related to or married to the accused women. Was it just a coincidence? Women were considered to be weaker, hence the devil could more easily and frequently possess their souls. Moreover, women who did not follow social norms were more vulnerable to be accused. For example, widows were more susceptible to be accused because they had no husband to control and to protect them from malicious accusations.
Another approach that we found really interesting was the biological approach. Since I'm majoring in the medical field, the biological approach was really intriguing for me. As stated by historian Laurie Will Carlson, the silent hysteria was a product of people's responses to physical and neurological behaviors, which were the product of an epidemic of encephalitis. The same form of encephalitis existed later on in 1920s, which became pandemic. Having the limited scientific and medical knowledge back in 1692, physicians could only offer witchcraft as an explanation of those strange behaviors such as fits and hallucinations. For example, people who were unable to walk or experience paralysis could be possibly accused of bewitchment.
Now, since we have an idea of witchcraft, let's try to understand why it started to gradually disappear.
Well, it happened due to the Enlightenment age that changed the way people started to perceive the world.
Enlightened people stressed the importance of science,
education,
republican government,
and civilization. Civilization meant the disappearance of ignorance, barbarism, and superstition. It also meant the presence of love, gratitude, politeness, and a better life.
Due to the Enlightenment ideas, religion was not only based on faith, but also on reason. God was no longer perceived as absolute and arbitrary. In contrast, God was a personification of love and affection, but not fear.
As a result of all the Enlightenment transformations, society has become liberal and republican, and whether or not we believe in witchcraft is no longer relevant.
Thank you, Anna and Jahan, for this multifaceted insight into the world of witchcraft in America. And who doesn't like to see a witch fly by? Salam, Dzień dobry, bonjour, buenas tardes, good afternoon. My name is Leida Tolentino. Since 2011, Broward College has been urging students to question every possibility, to think critically, preparing graduates to be problem solvers and innovators. Our next speaker will expand on this topic. She is Joana Viloria. She is majoring in nursing and has a passion for medicine. She strongly believes education is essential for lifelong success. She believes you control your destiny and you allow yourself to stand where you are because of your actions, your positive thinking, and your education, which prepares you for whatever life may bring. With our next presentation, Joana Viloria, Spare the Rod, Spoil the Child, Education and Pedagogy in 18 century America. Joel?
Good afternoon, Broward College students and faculty. As we today are learning various languages, I invite you to say with me, Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa.
Does anybody know what that means?
No.
Japanese for good afternoon. Well, Broward College has tried to adapt new ways in creating critical thinking in the classrooms and educational planners. But did you know the intellectual roots of critical thinking are as ancient as to the teaching practices of Socrates 2,500 years ago? Education has been imperative, even before we knew it was necessary for fundamental interaction in society. The Enlightenment brought a wave of scientific revolution, where we understood our world, our universe, and ultimately society as well. Individuals believed that we were destined for presumed roles, intellectual and emotional creatures. In today's presentation, I will be discussing concepts of John Locke, concepts that how individuals we perceived through our senses, information we received through our sight, through our hearing, through our taste, through our smell, and through our touch. In today's presentation, I invite you to understand how education was and changed via the Enlightenment movement. During the Age of Enlightenment, also called the Age of Reason, educators believed that they could change their society and improve their life through their powers of critical thinking and reason. The Enlightenment's ideas had a significant impact on the American Revolution and early education policy in the United States. These same ideas, therefore, in the 18th century, produced radical changes in education and educational theory that are carried on still today. Locke's interest in pedagogy came from his essay concerning human understanding, that he questioned, if the mind of a child was indeed a tabula rasa, which is Latin for blank slate, he said, upon which experience made impressions, then controlling this was imperative. Those who have children, he said, are in control of their education. And parents, in fact, are largely responsible for our education, our formation, structure, and understanding. He said, parents actually determined our fate. This was actually intriguing to me, because as individuals, we usually believe that we control our fate. But as Locke said, parents, because we shadow our parents, we actually are determined, they determine our fate. Education became more practical, more scientific, and the idea that children's education was a natural process that needed the support of parents became more commonplace. As the idea of parent-child relationships flourished, Locke advised parents not to base their authority on fear, but to have an absolute entire authority over them. Locke strongly believed in nurture versus nature. This belief led him to emphasize the idea that of early education and changes in parental care, such as allowing infants to be free from swaddling, allowing young children to explore without restraint their environment, the use of gentle forms of discipline. He emphasized loving relationships as the best way to inspire the child to replicate their parents' behavior, that learning should be fun and not a task imposed. As John Witherspoon said, a middle is best. You shouldn't be too lenient or too strict to your children. Education was once a privilege for only the upper class. However, during the 18th century, education, literacy, and learning were gradually provided to the rich and the poor alike. Locke's theory was that education shouldn't be restricted to a certain class or gender. Another philosopher, scientist Benjamin Franklin, he emphasized the value of utilitarian and scientific education in the schools. Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, stressed the importance of civic education and to the citizens of a democratic nation. While Locke's contribution to pedagogy was influential, that of Jean-Jacques Rousseau was no less than amazing. Jean-Jacques Rousseau argued that children were born with inherent goodness, spoiled by civilization, contrary to the ideology that we were born into the world of original sin. He challenged Locke's belief that one should reason with children, and believed education should begin at birth and continue well into adulthood, emphasizing the differences between the mind of a child and the mind of an adult. He believed children learn best by experiencing their environment, experiencing and incorporating this into ECE programs today, early childhood education. He was prominent for natural, spontaneous, undirected play of free from adults. The philosophy of the Enlightenment advocated propagation of knowledge as a means of overcoming social and political evils. The Enlightenment came in the wake of the scientific revolution, a period of intellectual achievement. This is where critical thinking comes to play. Intellectuals analyze this concept to social and political questions. They argue for freedom of thought, freedom of press in the arts,